And so what our goal today is to really try to take some of the things that I've learned along the way, both philosophically, practically speaking, and on that note, I'd like to introduce Carol Fitzgibbons, come up again, Inland Regional Center Director, and again, blessed to be able to have her come speak with us today. And just kind of some rules of the house, guys. I'm a firm believer that if you got to go to the bathroom, go to the bathroom. If we take a break all at one time, then we're only got 3 stalls, and that's just not enough. So you got to go to the bathroom, go to the bathroom. We gotta go smoke, got to go right outside that door. That's for me anyway. So feel free. We'll just make this casual and relaxed. We'll have a lot of Q&A. We're going to have a working lunch today, and we're going to use one with lunch. We'll get our food, and then we'll just kind of do a Q&A through lunchtime and run along those lines. And Carol's got our watch here, so I don't know if she's timing me or if she's timing herself.
I'm timing me.
There you go. So with that, Carol.
Thank you very much, Grady. I'm going to move this little white chair. I'm too short to sit in those things. My feet just kind of wiggle. So I'm going to stand, if you don't mind. When Grady was asking how many of you are connected to the regional center, I was really impressed. That means that we've done a fairly decent job in our 2-county area that we're responsible for to have parents connect with us and have families feel that they are going to be able to get some of the services that they need through us. And I'm really glad that we've been that successful. Do most of you know that we serve both Riverside and San Bernardino counties? You're aware of that? Okay. I've been with the center now for 3 years, and didn't realize the vastness of this community. And when they told me that I needed to go meet the people in Blythe, I said, well, how far away is that? Well, you all know it's 3 hours away. So that takes us all the way to that end. We go all the way to San Diego, to that line right after Temecula. We go all the way up past Barstow, and then we go all the way down to Orange County. So you can kind of get a feel for how vast our area is responsible for. The other thing is, there's a lot of folks that live in this particular area. We are currently serving over 28,000 people with developmental disabilities throughout the 2-county area. And what is interesting is that it's about half and half. When you look at the total numbers of people that we are serving right now today, about half of them live in the Riverside County and about half of the people live in the San Bernardino County. Let's see, who traveled the furthest today? Anybody come from Blythe? How about Temecula? Okay, so we've got a couple of folks from Temecula. Welcome. What, you were an hour away? Yeah, okay. How many people from the upper desert area? Barstow, Victorville, Apple Valley, Big Bear. Okay, give me the name of the city most of you came from. Ontario. Very good, very good. Okay, that's about what, an hour away, 45 minutes away? Drove it yesterday. Okay, all righty. I'm sorry? La Quinta. Okay. Well, I'm really glad that you made the trek. For you all, that probably doesn't feel like a long way. And I came from the San Diego area, and I was working out in the East County, and the furthest that I probably had to drive was about half hour, 45 minutes. So I know how that feels. And thank you for being here this morning and being so prompt and being on time. What I'd like to do is kind of get a feel of some of the things that you all are involved with the center. How many of you have children that are about ready to enter grade school? First timers in school, okay? First grader, okay? How many people have kids that are about 15-ish? 15, 16? Okay. So you all are involved in what some of those next steps might be after school. What about those folks that are over the age of 23, 24? Okay. What about the folks that maybe have kids that are in their 40s? 50s? Okay. 60s? Okay, it looks like your child may be the oldest one in the group. Is that right? I don't think that's true. But thank you very much for being here. Okay, that gives me a good picture. It looks like that we need to spend some time talking a little bit about Regional Center's role when your sons and daughters are getting ready maybe to leave school and some of the things that you need to be working on and thinking about. Am I hitting it? Okay, so we've got young adults primarily. All right. How many of you, let me just name off some service types, and then if you don't mind just raising your hand and we'll see how many people we've got that are receiving different types of services from the center. And if you're receiving more than one, keep your hand up, okay? Respite services. Okay. Day programs. Okay. Transportation. You are receiving transportation? Okay. Okay. And was that true with you as well? Were you receiving transportation to and from the program? From the district. Okay. Okay. What about housing? Supported living, licensed residential settings? That's what you need, is supported living or residential? Okay, okay. What about social activities? Recreation? Receiving any of that? Okay. Well, thank you for doing that with me because, again, that'll help me be sure that I hit the points that we need to cover today. When you first heard about Regional Center, tell me some things that came to your mind. What were maybe just some snippet words, maybe one or two phrases? What did that mean to you when you heard about Regional Center? Support? Guidance? Help? Okay. What else? Okay. What about resources? Did that come to your mind? What about connection? Possibly connection with the center, connection with other families. Did that come to your mind? What about being able to understand a little bit more about the disability that your sons or daughters may have had? Kind of gaining some understanding and knowledge? No, that didn't come to your mind. Okay. Since you've been with the Regional Center, what comes to your mind now? What does the Regional Center mean to you? What are some of those words again? Coordination. Okay. What else? Other thoughts? Sorry? Keeping a file. That's probably a good thing to do. What other things? Waiting. Okay. I can appreciate that. I saw a hand go up over here. Anything? Sorry? Services? Okay. Anything else? Bureaucracy. And that is true. We're trying to delayer some of that bureaucracy. Anything else? Yes, ma'am. Ineligibility? Okay. That is true. With the way that people are evaluated in our system and the way that the law outlines those persons that are eligible for regional center, there are people that come to the regional center that may be suspected of having a developmental disability. They may be ineligible. And that can be extremely frustrating, and I do understand, because you can feel like the person is so close, and that ineligibility puts that line in there again, and we really try hard to help people find resources that may be able to assist them when they are ineligible. And that is one of the things that we've been working on with our intake department, so that they have those resources of other organizations that can assist families. The regional center system has been around since the 60s. And many of the organizations that you all may learn about and may work with on a day-to-day basis, maybe it's a day program, or it could be a transportation services. You were talking about residential services. Many of those organizations are older than the regional centers, because groups of families came together and decided that they needed to do something. They did not want their sons and daughters to continue to have to reside in a state institution of some sort. They wanted their children at home. They wanted to be a part of their lives. And that's one of the major reasons why the regional center system was put into place, so that we are able to help develop those services in the community and provide those services for families and the children and the adults as they become adults. All of you know that we serve people from birth to death, so we're with them throughout their entire life. Some families do come to the center. Excuse me, I get, with this dry climate, I get dry mouth. Sometimes you were talking about ineligibility. We are a voluntary organization that is available to families and people with disabilities. That doesn't mean that they have to come to us. That's a family's choice and the person's choice. So at some point in time, sometimes people become inactive with our services. And they may decide that right now I'm doing fine, I really don't need anything from the center, and I'm not gonna go through having people come in and out of my house and visit with me quarterly. I don't need that right now. So their case, if you will, goes on inactive status. But at any point in time that that family or that person may need something, all the individual has to do is call the regional center. The case will be reactivated. We may need to go through some of the assessments again and update that information so that we're really on top of what that person may need and what kinds of services we need to assist them to locate within the community. But we are always open. I was looking at some of the statistics the other day, and there have been probably about, if you put all of the inactive cases together, as well as the people that we're currently serving, that number almost triples. And the other thing that happens is sometimes people move away. They move out of the state of California. Anytime a family comes back, or the individual comes back to California, they can reactivate their case. So we are here for the lifelong. Let me talk just a little bit about the support services and the kinds of things that you all get involved in. In fact, maybe if you don't mind opening, You should have a little packet on your, that starts with the fact sheet. The very front part of it is just an overview of the regional center. And we just kind of whipped through that pretty fast. Then you'll have a sheet that has a little picture on it, and it does have all of the different levels and age groups of individuals that we work with. And there is a description of that on the back. What I'm asking you to look for is the role of the Consumer Services Coordinator. And what I'd like to have us go over is, what is that CSC or the Services Coordinator responsible for? Because this is your link to the regional center. It's very important that you and your CSC are able to establish a good communication mechanism, as well as being able to talk with that person easily and solve issues together. I think that all of you have been through the individual program planning process. Have you? Everybody been through? Okay. On an annual basis, there will be a meeting that will be held with your CSC and yourself and your son or daughter, and anybody else that you feel needs to be involved in the discussion. When you come from intake, and this is the first time around, that same type of meeting needs to be held to determine what are the services. What kinds of things are you looking for? What kinds of things do you think your son or daughter need? And what kinds of connections do we need to help you find in the community? The other thing that I just need to say right before we get into the planning process, Regional Center is considered the last payer. We're kind of the payer of last resort, if you will. There are other tax-supported entities that you have been involved with. Those of you that have been involved with kids in the school system, that is a tax-supported entity. They are first. They have the responsibility to ensure that you're getting what you need from the school system. We're your backup. If you're having a difficulty with the school or there's some issues that are coming up, call your CSC, talk with them, ask them to come to the individual education planning meeting. They're there to assist you and to be your advocate. So we're always the last guy on the road. We ask families to take a look at their insurances, to get to know the other resources that may be available to them in the community, and we can help with that. But we have to prove that we are the last source of funds available to support your sons and daughters. That's something we're required to do on behalf of our regulations. So that's one of the things that the CSC will help you look at, is what kinds of resources are in the community. Yes, sir. Did all of you hear his question? Had to do with the conflict that can arise between the parent and the child, and what is the role of the CSC in that situation. Did I hit it? Okay. Anybody else have that issue? Okay. I think that how many of you have kids that don't have disabilities? Okay. Have you run into that before? Where you have situations where possibly you and the child don't agree? They will. It's kind of second nature some days, isn't it? The role of the CSC in that situation sometimes is to play mediator and to help facilitate the discussion between the mother and the dad with the child. Our first responsibility when the person, especially as a minor, is to get people on the same page. But as the person becomes an adult, they have the same rights as any other adult does after they reach the age of 18, and they can make their own choices. I know that what immediately comes to mind is safety. What's going to happen? What other emergency am I going to have to deal with when I get the call that my son or daughter's out on the streets and I don't know where they are? Those are real fears. And there again, when a person with a disability becomes of age, our role is to do that facilitation between the parent and the child. Also, we get into the role of helping the service entity, let's say it's a day program, because some of you are going to be going into working with day programs, transporters, residential folks. It's not always going to be perfect. It's just like if you think about maybe your first job or your second job. Some of you may have been in situations where you got into battles with your employer, or it didn't feel right, or it didn't sit right. Well, our job, all of our jobs actually, is to help that person with the disability to take a look at what's going on and help them figure out, okay, maybe this isn't the right spot for me. But if I got up earlier in the morning and I got to work on time, then my day doesn't start off bad, and we're not fighting with each other when I walk in the door or walk out the door from the family side. So if you think about the things that you and I've gone through and the experiences that we've had in our life, your sons and daughters are going to experience much of the same things. The problem is that their thinking may not be quite as well organized and quite as well structured, or maybe don't learn from some of the experiences that we've had to be able to make some of those decisions for themselves and have you feel comfortable about it, because that's the tough part. Okay. Let me whip through the IPP planning process for just real quick, because I want you to keep these things for a reference for yourself if you can, and if you want to. But I would encourage you to take these home and read through it. I think the thing that's most important is to establish that good working relationship with your CSC. Their first role is to help set up that plan. Then they're responsible for visiting with the individual on a quarterly basis. It may not be in your home, but it may be at the day program or possibly at school. They like to see how things are working and how it's going. So then they can help you and they can help the individual figure out, well, maybe this isn't the right spot. Maybe we need to ask the program to do something a little bit different. Or there's a personality conflict. That happens, with us too. So their role, again, is to play that facilitator kind of role and to help problem solve. But they also are responsible for keeping a detailed record of how things are going, what's working, what's not. So all of that is written into a case file. And we are going more and more electronic, but we can give you paper if that's what you need, or we can even download some of the things. If you need some of the information that we have, we always can share that with you. When the person becomes an adult, they have to give you permission. If you don't have conservatorship, then they have to give you permission to have access to that record. And they just can scribble, it's okay, as long as we know that they've at least been asked. Yes, ma'am. On our website, there is information about what the steps are of doing conservatorship. It is something that the family would need to do directly. There are books that you can put together, that you can get a hold of to learn how to go through the conservatorship process. We really do encourage families to work with an attorney. Legal aid is also very helpful at doing the conservatorship process, but it is to your benefit to use an attorney to go through the conservatorship process. It's not always as straightforward as maybe some of the examples in the books and so forth might state. It's a pretty complicated process, and you want to make sure that all of the things that you would like to have participation on or have, for lack of better words, control of the decision making, you need to think that through and make certain that you've listed those in the conservatorship paperwork so that there's no question about who needs to talk to who and who has the final say on that decision part. We do have an attorney in the room. Did I do okay? Okay. I'm sure he'll be glad to answer any other detailed questions if that comes up. Okay, but there is a listing on our website about how to go through conservatorship. The individual program plan is really the base. That tells us what people want, what they want to do. It has goals set up on a regular basis, and then we work through those for the year. There's also ways to have addendums to those individual program plans, and if there's a change or something that you want to have done differently, or you don't think that program's working, or you need something different, then the CSC, you need to contact them and let them know what's going on, what you think you need a change with, and then another discussion will be held. It's always important when we do an individual program planning type meeting is that the team comes together, and that team can be as small as the CSC and the consumer. If you have conservatorship and the person is an adult, then there is the 3 people. It would be the CSC, the consumer, and you, the conservator. You can make a decision if you want to have the program or the transporter or whoever else you want to have involved in the discussion to help make some sort of decision, then that person becomes part of the team as well. We got all these acronyms. Okay, the individual program plan, if you think about it as, okay, that's the umbrella, okay? And the goals for what you want to have accomplished during that year, or maybe even on a quarterly basis, outlines what that's all about. Then if the person, let's say they're referred to a day program, and Karen will be talking about that a little bit more. They have an individual service plan, or it could even be an individual employment plan, habilitation services plan, thank you. Okay. We even added another acronym to the world here. When people are in school, they have the individual education plan. Our plan, again, is the umbrella. And then the services and the kinds of coordination that needs to happen then become another plan, because somebody else is responsible for that piece. It can be used for day program. It can be used, they use that same term for residential, for supported living, whatever the additional service may be, there is a service plan that needs to be written. And again, that's where it goes back to that, and Karen will talk more about this, but the specific things that they want to have happen in that program, just like the education system does. They want the person to do X, Y, and Z. But that holds each one of us accountable for our part. It can be considered another layer. It's kind of the same thing as the service plan, but depending on what that service is, sometimes they'll add like employment, habilitation, supported living plan. Okay. And Bob McGuire is here too to talk a little bit about the residential piece and the living pieces. Okay. Okay, so we've got the plan going. We're checking on it every year. We're making changes to it. It is the overriding plan that our CSCs use to make certain that you and the individual are getting the services that are necessary and needed. That's our guideline. So it is really important that you stay in touch with your CSC if something comes up and you have a concern or a question. They're your link. Some of the services that are listed in that plan are the responsibility for Regional Center to fund. We always have to look again to see if there's another tax-supported entity out there that can pick up those costs. If not, Regional Center is responsible to do that. And again, Karen can talk a little bit more about that piece and the transportation side. The Lanterman Act uses language that is called person-centered. And that's the philosophy, is that the plan needs to meet the needs of the individual. So it becomes the person's plan, and it's centered around what they want and what they need. Yes, ma'am. Yes, we are a tax-supported entity. 99% of the funds that Regional Center has comes from taxes. We are a large part of the state budget. We do receive federal money, and right now about 50% of the money for people with developmental disabilities comes from the federal government. It comes from the federal government to the State Department of Developmental Services and then down to the Regional Center. We don't have to identify how much federal money we spend or how much state money we spend. We get state money because it's gone through the department and down to us. That help? Okay. Let me see. Any other questions about the individual program planning part? Yes, sir. It kind of depends, again, on the person's needs. If we are funding something, or if the person is out of your home and they're in a residential setting, or they might be in supported living, we do require our CSCs to visit on a quarterly basis. But if they're in school and things are going pretty smoothly and you're not needing to see us as much, we may go to an annual. And some regional centers are using a 3-year plan. We've chosen not to do that because we feel we have a responsibility to touch base with you at least once a year. Because things change, and we need to try and help you look at those things. There's also a section in terms of the role of the parent. I see you, just one sec. Okay. This is another piece that, again, it's kind of a summary, but it might be really helpful to you, especially those of you that might be new to the regional center system. It just gives you a very good snapshot of what you can do to help prepare yourself coming into a planning meeting, and also knowing what you can ask for and the kinds of things that we're there for to help support you. So this might be helpful to you as well. I know Grady's getting anxious. Yes, ma'am. I'm glad to see you, Beth. This is an issue that has come up probably within the last 2 years, especially, because it is geared more toward the folks that have autism and that are on the autism spectrum. We're going to be working very hard, and Beth and her group is helping us with this, is to take a look at what kinds of services need to be offered in the day programs or in any kind of program that is going to better meet those kids' needs. It is kind of it is a new thing for us to take a look at, because we've got to figure out how to help support those folks and have their needs met in an effective way. And I'm glad you brought it up. We are going to be doing, probably for lack of better words, a survey, and finding out what families are seeing that their kids need that may not be getting met. And we want to hear from the folks too, so that they have some input into what that program is going to look like. And we're also learning that a lot of times people may not want to be at that program for 5 hours or 6 hours a day. They want to have more variety of places to go, things to do, and more activity, as well as most of them want to earn some money. So we've got to incorporate that teaching part as well as being able to provide the fun that might go along with that. Yes, ma'am. Well, the things that you're bringing up are things that we're wrestling with right now, and this is really happening across the nation. What we're trying to do is gather what other places are doing, and even up and down the state as well as throughout the country, because we've got to figure this one out. We want those folks to be as independent as possible and take control of their lives and have us be able to provide some of those supports around them so that they can do that effectively without all of us panicking and thinking they're going to get hurt tomorrow or that day. So it is a major area, and Beth has been helping us, and her groups have been helping us take a look at what we can do and where we need to start. And one of the first things is getting people's input and finding out what the real issues are, and then figuring out a plan of how we might go about trying to solve that. But it's not solved yet. And I'm glad you brought it up, because we do need to make sure it's first and foremost in trying our planning. Okay, yes ma'am. And again, across the country, this is being experienced, and so we're trying to learn together to be able to meet this need more adequately. It's not being dropped, but it's going to take a little bit of research and some time to make certain that people are well trained in how to work with these folks so that they don't get frustrated, and that they can stick with it and really train the person and have them feel comfortable with the skills that they have today to be able to do the work. So it's going to take a little time.
Guy, would you know? For the most part, from a perspective standpoint, really this wave of individuals coming through the system right now, the ages 18 to 23 to 18 to 25, they're really kind of the first wave of kids that were identified. And again, I watch where some of the experiences are at right now, is that we're watching the wave of 18 to 25-year-olds with autism coming through the system now. And these are the kids, unfortunately, that were our experimental kids when they were 5 and 6 years old, that the education system has finally started to understand a little bit better, the children at the younger ages now, because of all the stuff that really kind of we as parents had to learn with our children with autism. And so what's happening is that that population is aging in a world that still is not quite, again, like it's a growing population, it's huge, and the services and the systems are not really 100% in place yet. So our kids are kind of becoming a second round of, I hate to use the word, but they're trial cases right now for the kids that are 5 and 6 years old today, where the system has really kind of mastered that a whole lot better. And again, as I know, I've experienced the different programs out there and watching how individualized the situation really is. And again, I know some of the programs that we'd started over at PBW, we felt we had to shut down an autism program because we were probably 5 years too early for the system to be ready for us. And so it's a training ground right now, and unfortunately, it's laying on our kids' back. Just like it was back in the 70s, the parents who really set the path and the foundation for when my son was born in 1990. So there's that transition, and that's where we take a look at the services of what Regional Center is out there trying to do. And as we listen to Carol talk, you know, that role that we have with our caseworkers is so important to maintain that working relationship. And again, I go back to the very early years with James when I was given this huge manual of what is this? And again, each of those manuals became more and more critical as time went through to what I was looking at that manual that I understand today, but I sure didn't understand it when he was first born. And so that's the same transition that we're having to go through. And as, you know, we sit back and expect all these immediate overnight services when that caseload is just growing phenomenally, you know, to where it's 1 in 50 births now that we're dealing with autism, and it's growing, it's huge, and there's that receptiveness with it out there as well, and it's a process. And right now, those of us that have kids that are between the ages of, you know, 15 to 23 years old, our kids are the pioneers in what the services are really going to wind up looking like tomorrow in a system that I think still is there, but it's a process, and our kids are the first ones experiencing, you know, getting to be adults right now.
Yeah, Grady's right. We are going through that trial and error kind of process right now, and it's difficult. It's very challenging, but we need to do it because providing appropriate services in the community is part of Regional Center's responsibility. Let me just summarize real quickly, because I know there's other folks that have a lot of information that would like to share that with you as well. Our first responsibility is to determine who has a disability. Anybody that is suspected of having a developmental disability can come to the Regional Center, have assessments, and then if they are developmentally disabled under the categories that are in law for the regional centers in the state of California, then would go through the individual program planning, et cetera. For those children or adults that are not deemed to be eligible for Regional Center based on those definitions again, then we refer back out and give the families as many resources as we can that might be able to assist them. Once someone is in our program and in our system, they are always in our system. We do not, when we talk about inactivation, that does not mean that they're discharged. They're always a consumer of the Regional Center. They can come back at any time, they can request services, they can ask for help, whatever it may happen to be. We do the individual program plan that outlines all of the needs for the individual, and what it really does is it sets the roadmap for us working together and going forward. Our responsibility then becomes searching in the community along with you and with the individual the services that they need and that they would like to have. We work more from the positive of what's going to support this child and this adult the best. We're not always working on the needs. We're looking at what are the hopes, what are the dreams, where are we going here, so that then the right services can be selected. In most cases, when a person becomes of age, we become the funding source. Right now, today, Regional Center's budget is about $290 million. 45 to 49 million is only for operations. That covers the cost of our staff and our technology and the things that we need to run the business, if you will. All of the rest of the money goes to support people. It buys their services. That's where your tax money is going. Then our responsibility is to make sure on an annual basis that things are still moving smoothly for you and the individual, that you also have maybe a new idea. You want to try something different. Your sons and daughters want to try something different. So we review that plan and make certain that we've still got the hopes and the dreams that are listed there for the person. And then we work together to make that happen. Also, if there is an issue that comes up and we think we're not agreeing, the individual and the family has the right to appeal the decision. I know some of you probably have had situations where maybe you didn't agree on the service or we weren't able to fund it because of the laws, et cetera, and you received what's called a notice of action, an NOA. Don't you? I hate these acronyms. Notice of action. And that gives you the instructions on how you can follow through with an appeal process with us. And again, that opens the door for discussion. Sometimes we wind up in a hearing setting with an administrative law judge, and we do work things out together. But our goal and our purpose is to be there for the people with developmental disabilities, support them, and to support you. We're the coordinator and the facilitator, and we are here to work alongside you. I really appreciate being able to be with you today, and it always warms my heart to be able to share with you and to talk with you and to also learn what your concerns are today. And I really appreciate you giving me some good concrete information about some of the things that you run into and some of the things that you're dealing with. So I appreciate that very much.
Carol,
Thank you.
if I have a quick question for you. If you were to, we all have different experiences in our careers and our situations. When do you feel was that time that you can sit back and say, this is what we're all about, where you can sit back without naming names or that type of thing, where you really sat back and said, this is what we're all about in the success of an individual with special needs? Do you have one of those aha experiences that you had?
I've been working with people with disabilities since 1974, and I could probably write a book. I think one of the most personal and kind of heartwarming kinds of situations was there was a couple. I've worked on both sides. I've been a provider, and I've also been with regional centers at different points in time. And the job that I came from was we operated a large residential program for people with disabilities. And we had all levels of service. We did supported living, we did residential settings, we did both community care licensed as well as health licensed programming. And this couple, I met them when I first went to San Diego and was with the center there. And they were one of the first couples in the country that got married. They had an apartment of their own. In fact, a book's been written about them. And they lived very comfortably and were happy and, you know, kind of went through the same things that any couple goes through. And they both worked, they had their jobs, et cetera. Over the years, I was able to stay in touch with them. And at one point, it became clear that they needed a little more support, and so additional hours were given to them. Again, we needed to help them out, just like any of us are going to age. At different points, you need different help. And they got to the point where we really felt, and they asked to be able to move into one of the licensed homes because they felt like they needed more people around them. And we gave them the master suite, of course. And they were probably one of the only married couples that lived in a licensed residential setting together. And over the years, I've just stayed up with them on their stories, and I know their brothers and their sisters and all of that. And the male, his name was Jerome, and he got very ill. He also wound up with Alzheimer's. And he passed away pretty quickly after they had moved into the house. And when he passed away, Anita said, "I'm tough, I'm strong, I can live on my own." So we said, okay, what does that mean? Well, that means I can stay in this bedroom because I like it. And I can still be a part of this family that I've gotten to know over the years. And we said, yes, that's fine. Well, the thing that touched my heart was about a year after her husband passed away, mine did. And I was there for Thanksgiving at their home, and she came up to me and she said, "You know, they're up there playing together. Don't you know that?" And I said, yes. And the way that I've known them over the years was, of course, I watched them go through a number of different situations, learn how to love each other, learn how to care for each other. And then she was able to give some of that love back to me. So we kind of came full circle as friends. And that was one of the aha moments that all of us have the opportunity to see happen at different points in time. Because people with disabilities do show the same care, do show the same love that you and I experience with one another. So, thank you for letting me be here.
Yes, thank you, Carol, for joining us today. And again, guys, it's a beautiful agency, again, as she said, from birth to death. And I know that that was my safety valve as a father, knowing that them as an agency, granted, I was going to have to make it work, I was going to have to do all those things, but it really, truly becomes a partnership of learning, a partnership of them helping teach us and us teaching them. But the bottom line is that our caseworkers can be as good as we help them become to ourselves, so that we help in that planning process, because it is individual planning. And it's us to help them with the ideas that we want to do our best to try to put together.